Allah named an entire chapter of the Quran after an ant, not after a king, not after an angel, not after a battle that shook the earth. An ant, a creature so small that you could crush it beneath your foot without even realizing what you have done. And yet, Allah, the creator of the seven heavens, the owner of the throne, the one who commands galaxies into existence, chose this tiny, fragile creature and immortalized it in his final revelation to mankind. There is something buried inside this story that most people walk right past. Something that, when you truly understand it, will reshape the way you see yourself, your purpose, and your relationship with the one who made you. But to understand why Allah honored this ant above billions of human beings who have ever lived, we need to go back to a valley, an army, and a single voice that refused to stay silent. Before we reach the ant, you need to understand the man whose army was marching that day. And when I say man, I do not mean an ordinary man. I mean the most powerful human being to ever walk the face of this earth. His name was Sulaiman alayhi as-salam, Solomon, the son of Dawood, the prophet king whom Allah blessed with a dominion unlike anything given to anyone before or after him. Think about the most powerful leaders in human history. Think about the empires that stretched across continents, the armies that numbered in the hundreds of thousands, the kings who built monuments so tall they scraped the sky. Now erase all of them from your mind, because none of them, not a single one, comes close to what Sulaiman alayhi as-salam was given. Allah gave him power over the wind. It would travel at his command, carrying him and his forces wherever he willed. Allah gave him dominion over the jinn, beings of smokeless fire, invisible to us, powerful beyond our comprehension. And they served him. They built for him palaces and structures. They dove into the depths of the sea for him, and if any of them disobeyed, they were chained. Allah gave him the ability to understand the language of birds. Every chirp, every call, every whistle that we hear and dismiss as background noise. He understood it the way you and I understand a conversation between two people. And more than all of this, Allah made him a prophet. He was not just a ruler, he was a messenger of Allah, guided directly by divine revelation. Now, here is what makes this even more extraordinary. Sulaiman alayhi as-salam asked for this kingdom. He turned to Allah and made a dua that is recorded in the Quran. He asked his Lord to grant him a kingdom that would not be given to anyone after him. And Allah answered. Allah gave him what no other human being has ever possessed. But, and this is the part most people miss, with all of that power, with all of that authority, with an army that included not just men, but jinn and birds, marching in perfect formation, disciplined, organized, unstoppable. With all of that, Sulaiman alayhi as-salam never forgot who he was. He never forgot where his power came from. He never let the crown on his head make him forget the dust from which he was created. This is the backdrop you need. This is the world you need to visualize. An army like nothing the earth has ever seen. Columns of jinn and humans marching in ranks, birds flying overhead in formation, serving as scouts and messengers, the wind itself bending to the will of one man. And that man, despite everything, remained a servant, a grateful, humble servant of Allah. Now picture this army on the move. They are advancing across the land, and there is nothing that can stand against them. Nothing in the heavens or the earth could challenge this force. Mountains would tremble at its approach. Nations would surrender before a single sword was drawn. And it is this army, this unstoppable, incomprehensible display of divine power, that is about to come face to face with something so small, so seemingly insignificant, that if you blinked at the wrong moment, you would miss it entirely. They were approaching a valley where ants lived, tiny creatures going about their day, carrying food, building their homes, living their lives in the soil beneath the surface of the earth. They had no weapons, they had no walls, they had no army. They had nothing that could protect them from what was coming, and what was coming would have crushed them. Every single one of them, their homes, their tunnels, their eggs, their young, everything they had built, erased in an instant beneath the feet of an army that did not even know they existed. But someone did know. One ant knew. And what she did next is the reason you are hearing this story over 1400 years later. What happened in that valley, in that single moment between an approaching army and a colony of helpless ants, is what Allah chose to preserve forever in His book. And the reason He preserved it is not what most people think. The Quran describes what happened next in one verse, just one verse. But packed inside those words is a depth that scholars have spent centuries unpacking. Allah says in Surah An-Naml verse 18, "Until when they came upon the valley of the ants, an ant said, 'O ants, enter your dwellings, so that Sulaiman and his soldiers do not crush you while they perceive not.'" Read that again. Read it slowly. Because there are layers inside this single sentence that will take your breath away once you see them. First, notice what the ant said. She did not say, "Run, they are going to kill us." She did not say, "Suleiman wants to destroy us." Look at her words carefully. She said, "So that they do not crush you while they perceive not." She gave Suleiman alayhi assalam the benefit of the doubt. She assumed the best about him. She acknowledged, even in a moment of complete panic, even as death was marching towards her and her entire community, that the Prophet of Allah would never harm them intentionally. If they were going to be crushed, it would only be because the army did not know they were there. Think about that for a moment. This ant, this tiny creature with a brain smaller than a pinhead, displayed a level of adab, a level of etiquette with the Prophet of Allah that many human beings fail to show. She did not slander him. She did not accuse him. She protected his honor even while warning her people of danger. Now here is another layer. Look at the Arabic. The word used for this ant, namlatun, is in the feminine form. Scholars have noted this for centuries. And modern science has confirmed what the Quran indicated 1400 years ago. In an ant colony, the ones who lead, who organize, who communicate warnings, who direct the colony, they are female. The worker ants, the soldier ants, the scouts, female. The Quran used the feminine form at a time when no human being on earth could have known this biological fact through observation alone. But let us go deeper still. Because the linguistic miracle is not the only thing happening here. Look at the structure of what this ant said. She identified the threat. She gave a clear instruction. She provided a reason, and she protected the reputation of the one who posed the danger. In a single sentence, this ant demonstrated leadership, intelligence, concern for community, strategic thinking, and moral integrity. She did not freeze. She did not run alone. She did not think only of herself. Her first instinct, her absolute first response to mortal danger was to warn her people, to save them, to guide them to safety. Now think about how many human beings, when they see danger coming, think only of themselves. How many of us, when we receive guidance or knowledge, keep it to ourselves? How many of us see our brothers and sisters walking towards destruction, spiritual destruction, moral destruction, the destruction of their akhirah, and we say nothing? We do not warn, we do not call out, we do not even whisper. This ant put us to shame, and Allah knew she would. That is why He recorded her words. But there is still more, because we have not yet talked about what happened when Sulaiman alayhi salam heard her. And his reaction, his immediate instinctive response, reveals something about the relationship between power, humility, and gratitude that every single one of us needs to hear. The Quran says that when Sulaiman alayhi salam heard the ant's words, he smiled. He laughed out of joy and amazement. But look at what came out of his mouth next. He did not say, "How amusing, a talking ant." He did not laugh with the arrogance of a king who finds the fears of the small entertaining. No, he immediately turned to Allah. He said, "My Lord, Enable me to be grateful for your favor, which you have bestowed upon me and upon my parents, and to do righteousness of which you approve. And admit me, by your mercy, among your righteous servants. This is the most powerful man on earth. He commands the wind. He rules over jinn. He understands the languages of all creatures. And in this moment, when he overhears a tiny ant warning her colony about his army, his reaction is not pride. It is not amusement. It is gratitude. Deep, shaking, overwhelming gratitude to Allah. He heard the ant, and it reminded him of Allah. It reminded him that everything he had was a gift. Every power, every ability, every soldier in his army, none of it was his. All of it was from Allah. And this is where the story begins to turn towards something that will change the way you think about your own life forever. Here is the moment that stops you in your tracks. Here is the detail that most people miss entirely, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Allah, the Lord of the heavens and the earth, the creator of everything in existence, named an entire chapter of his eternal book after this ant. Not Surah Sulaiman, not Surah Al-Jinn, not Surah Al-Rih, the wind. He named it Surah An-Naml, the ant. In the chapter that contains the story of one of the greatest kings in human history, the story of the Queen of Sheba and her magnificent throne, the story of jinn who could transport objects across vast distances in the blink of an eye, the story of divine miracles that defy everything we know about the physical world. Allah chose the ant as the title. The ant got the headline. Let that sink in. The God who created the galaxies, who holds the planets in their orbits, who controls every atom in existence, he looked at this story and he chose the name of the smallest creature in it to be immortalized forever. Why? Because in the sight of Allah, greatness is not measured by size. It is not measured by power. It is not measured by wealth or armies or kingdoms or thrones. Greatness in the sight of Allah is measured by something else entirely. It is measured by sincerity, by courage, by selflessness, by how you use whatever little you have been given. That ant had nothing. She had no power. She had no army. She had no wealth. She had no status. She was, by every worldly measure, absolutely nothing compared to the force that was marching towards her. She was invisible, forgettable, crushable. But she had one thing. She had a voice, and she used it. She used it not to save herself. She could have run alone and hidden. She used it to save her community. She used it to warn, to lead, to protect. She used the one single thing she had, her voice, in the service of others. And Allah saw that. Allah heard that. And Allah honored it above everything else in that entire chapter. Do you understand what this means for you? You might be sitting right now thinking you are nobody. You might feel small. You might feel powerless. You might look at the world and see people with more money, more influence, more connections, more followers, more everything, and you might feel like nothing you do could ever matter. But Allah is telling you through this ant, through this 1400-year-old story preserved in His book, that your size does not determine your worth. Your bank account does not determine your legacy. Your follower count does not determine your place with Allah. What determines your worth is what you do with what you have been given. Even if all you have is a voice, even if all you have is one chance to speak the truth, to warn someone you love, to stand up when everyone else stays silent, to call people back to Allah when they are walking towards their own destruction, that is enough. In the sight of Allah, that is more than enough. That is worthy of being named in His eternal book. Now consider the contrast. In this same surah, Surah An-Naml, Allah also tells the story of nations that were destroyed. He tells the story of Thamud, who had everything. They had power, they had wealth, they had carved homes into mountains. They had been given sign after sign, prophet after prophet. And what did they do? They ignored every warning. They silenced every voice. They killed the she-camel of Allah, and they were erased. The ant spoke up. Thamud refused to listen. The ant, with no power at all, saved her entire community. Thamud, with all the power in the world, could not save themselves. This is the divine lesson. This is what Allah is showing us. It was never about power. It was always about obedience. It was always about using whatever you have in the way of Allah, no matter how small it seems to you. Because in the sight of Allah, nothing sincere is ever small. And here is something else that hits differently when you realize it. Sulaiman alayhi salam, the most powerful man on earth, changed course because of that ant. He stopped his army. He altered the march. The ant's words actually worked. Her warning was heard. Her community was saved. One tiny voice changed the direction of the greatest army ever assembled. If Allah can use an ant to redirect a prophet's army, what makes you think He cannot use you to change something in this world? Now let us sit with what this story does to the heart. Because this is not just history. This is not just a tale from the ancient world meant to entertain. This is a mirror. And when you look into it honestly, you might not like what you see at first. But what you see has the power to change everything. How many of us have been given more than that ant? Far more. We have been given hands and feet and eyes and ears. We have been given intellect and speech and the ability to read and write. We have been given the Quran, the actual words of Allah in our homes, on our phones, within arm's reach, at every moment of every day. We have been given the example of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the greatest human being ever created. We have been given community, family, health, time. And what do we do with it? How many of us see our brothers and sisters drifting away from the path of Allah and say nothing? How many of us watch people we love walking towards spiritual destruction, towards lives empty of salah, empty of Quran, empty of any connection to their Creator? And we stay silent? Not because we do not care, but because we are afraid. Afraid of being judged, afraid of being rejected, afraid of being labeled as too religious or too extreme or too much. That ant was not afraid, or if she was afraid, and how could she not be with an army of jinn and men and birds approaching, she spoke anyway. She spoke despite the fear. She warned despite the danger. She led despite her size. And that is the definition of courage. Not the absence of fear, but the presence of something greater than fear. In her case, it was love. Love for her community, responsibility towards those who could not protect themselves. Now think about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Think about the hadith where he said that a prophet among the prophets was once bitten by an ant, and in his pain he ordered the entire ant colony to be burned. And Allah revealed to him, because one ant bit you, you burned an entire community that glorifies Allah. Even the ants glorify Allah. Even the ants have a place in His creation that matters. Even the ants are seen, known, accounted for. If that is how Allah regards ants, how do you think He regards you? You, who were created with your own hands by Allah, who had His ruh breathed into you, who were honored above so much of creation, who were given the capacity to know Him, love Him, worship Him, and carry His message on this earth. If an ant can earn a chapter in the Quran through one act of sincere concern for others, what could you earn? But here is the painful part, because along with the honor comes the accountability. If an ant used what she had, and you have been given 1,000 times more, what is your excuse for doing less? On the day of judgment, and it is coming as certain as the sunrise, you will not be asked why you did not command armies or build empires or accumulate millions. You will be asked about what you did with what you were given. Your voice, your time, your knowledge, your influence, however small you think it is, your opportunity to speak a word of truth, to offer a hand, to remind someone of Allah, to live in a way that pulls others towards the light rather than pushing them towards the darkness. The ant will not be asked why she did not stop Suleiman's army with force. She could not, but she used what she had, and that was enough. What about you? There is a reason this story has survived for over 1,400 years. There is a reason scholars in every century, in every land, in every language have returned to this verse again and again. It is because the lesson never gets old. It never becomes irrelevant. It speaks to every generation, every situation, every person who has ever felt too small to make a difference. You are not too small. You were never too small. That is the lie of Shaitan, making you feel powerless so that you stay silent, stay inactive, stay asleep while the world needs you awake. Allah did not put you here to be a spectator. He put you here to be a participant. Even if your role feels as small as an ant's voice in a valley, that voice matters. It matters to Allah. And if it matters to Allah, it matters more than anything this dunya could ever offer. And this brings us to perhaps the most profound lesson of all, one that ties everything together and leaves you with something you will carry for the rest of your life. There is a word in the Quran that scholars say is the key to understanding why this story exists. And that word is in Sulaiman's response to hearing the ant. He said, Auzini, a word that carries the meaning of inspire me, restrain me, enable me, compel me from within. He asked Allah to give him an internal drive towards gratitude that he could not escape. He was asking for gratitude to become part of his nature, not just something he remembers to do, but something he cannot help but feel. And he asked for this because of an ant, a creature most of us step on without a second thought, led a prophet to make one of the most beautiful du'as in the entire Quran. A creature that weighs less than a milligram triggered a moment of worship from the most powerful man alive. A creature that lives for only a few months at most earned a mention in a book that will exist for all of eternity. This is the nature of Allah's kingdom. In His kingdom, things do not work the way they work in ours. In our world, the biggest gets the most attention, the richest gets the most respect, the loudest gets the most followers. But in Allah's kingdom, it is the most sincere who gets elevated. It is the most selfless who gets remembered. It is the one who acts with pure intention, no matter how invisible they are to the world, who gets written into the eternal record. You know what is amazing? That ant did not know she would be mentioned in the Quran. She had no idea that her words would be recited by billions of people across thousands of years. She was not performing for an audience. She was not trying to go viral. She was not thinking about her legacy or her brand or her reputation. She simply saw danger. She simply cared about her people. She simply spoke up, and Allah immortalized her. This is how it works with Allah. You do not have to plan your greatness. You do not have to manufacture your impact. You just have to be sincere. You just have to show up with whatever you have and use it in His way. And He takes care of the rest. He decides how far your deed travels. He decides whose heart it enters. He decides what legacy it becomes. Your job is just to be the ant. Your job is just to use your voice when it matters. Your job is just to warn with love, to lead with compassion, to care about the people around you even when the world tells you to look out for yourself. There is something else in this story that deserves your attention. Sulaiman alayhi as-salam, with all his power, with all his kingdom, with wind and jinn and birds and an army that stretched beyond what the eye could see. His dua after hearing the ant was not for more power. It was not for more kingdom. It was not for more wealth. He asked for three things: gratitude, righteous action, and to be admitted among the righteous servants of Allah. That is it. That is what the most powerful man on earth wanted. Not more dunya, not more status. He wanted to be grateful, to do good, and to die among the righteous. If that was enough for Sulaiman, why is it not enough for us? We chase and chase and chase. We chase money and status and followers and validation and comfort and security. We chase things that will turn to dust the moment our eyes close for the last time. And meanwhile, the things that actually matter, gratitude, sincerity, service to others, connection with Allah, we neglect them. We postpone them. We tell ourselves we will get to them later when we are older, when we are more stable, when we have more time. But the ant did not wait. The ant did not say, "I will warn them tomorrow." The ant did not say, "Someone else will handle it." The ant did not say, "I am too small to make a difference." She spoke, now. In the moment it mattered, with everything she had. And that is the final lesson. It is not about what you have. It is about what you do with what you have, right now, in this moment, before the army passes and the chance is gone forever. So here is your question, not a question for later, a question for right now, tonight, before you sleep. What is your voice? What has Allah given you, even if it feels small, even if it feels insignificant, even if the whole world would overlook it? What has He given you that you are not using? What warning are you not giving? What truth are you not speaking? What good are you not doing because you have convinced yourself that you are too small to matter? Because Allah is telling you, through the most powerful chapter name He ever chose, that small does not mean insignificant. He is telling you that one sincere act from the smallest creature can echo through eternity. He is telling you that He sees you, even when no one else does. He hears you, even when your voice shakes. He honors you, even when the world ignores you. Be the ant. Use your voice. Warn with love. Act with sincerity. And trust that the one who named an entire chapter after a creature you could hold on the tip of your finger, that same God is watching you. And nothing you do for His sake, no matter how small, is ever wasted. Allah did not need the ant, but He honored her anyway, because she did not need to be needed. She just needed to be sincere, and that is enough. That has always been enough.